Welcome to American Players Theater Talkbacks to Go. I'm Buzz Kemper, and I invite you to take a walk up the hill with Orange Schroeder and me as Orange talks with actors Kelsey Brennan and Gavin Lawrence about APT's 2019 production of Twelfth Night, or What You Will, by William Shakespeare.
We're talking about this season's production of Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare, and I am lucky to have with me Viola and Du Corsino. And I wanted to start by talking about the title of the play, because we know it as Twelfth Night, but it actually has a subtitle of What You Will. And the Twelfth Night aspect is because it was done after Christmas, the 12 days of Christmas. And is it lighthearted? Is it holiday entertainment?
Not our production. Our production is very, very funny and sexy and adventurous and fun. There's nothing Christmassy about it, though.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Can you think of why it's called Why You Will?
What You Will?
What You Will, sorry.
Well, there is, we get a line in the fifth act that Olivia says towards you when she's kind of at her wit's end. She feels like she's finally found the man that she loves and she's married him, and her response to someone who's pursuing her is, do what you will with your love, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to help you with that. So I think there's a lot of misplaced emotions in this play. There's a lot of emotional extremes, and there's a lot of bad behavior too. So do what you will is kind of, it feels kind of flippant. I don't know. To me, my character certainly doesn't ever say it or feel it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that means, to be quite honest. I think what Kelsey just said is the closest I can come to understanding why that was, an alternative title. And since my character is on the receiving end of do what you will, like whatever you do, I don't care, just as long as it doesn't have anything to do with being with me, which is not a nice thing to experience. I tend to try to ignore that when she says that to me. So
this is one of Shakespeare's plays that plays around with gender roles, and with Viola disguising herself as a young man, which you've done before, Kelsey.
This is true.
Yep. And what do you do to make yourself disguised as a man or a boy? Because we're supposed to always know that you are a woman disguised as a boy, which in Shakespeare's time would have been a boy disguised as a woman disguised as a boy, right?
Right.
At least we have one less layer of complication.
Yeah, think about that for a second. It's a great question, and it's one that I've had to answer now for 3 years in a row from audience, from, a lot of people say, what do you do when you have to play a man? And it's such an interesting question to me. I am from a generation that's really questioning binary gender roles right now, as we should be, deeply. And so I think about that a lot as an artist when I have to think about what are the things I want to adopt that are typically masculine. What does that mean? And I'm always asking that question in this play, and have for the past 3 years that I've played quote-unquote breach roles. And of course there are things that are more obvious. I think generally people who identify as male carry themselves a little bit differently physically, and that's something that I can do, that I can imitate. But I want to be specific with it always and not make a generalization, because I'm not interested in perpetuating any stereotypes in that way. But when Viola is in disguise, she is in fact disguising herself as her brother. She says, him I imitate. So it's fun for me to watch my fellow actors and see how they move through space and see if I can imitate that. Of course, costumes is going to help me quite a bit too. But in terms of what happens emotionally or spiritually, I believe that there is great gender spectrums within all of us, and I just let the parts of me that I think are more masculine take the stage. And it's really not that different. It's just a different part of me. And I make sure that when I'm rehearsing, I'm I'm prepared for that. My arsenal of APT sundresses have not seen the light of day this year because that's not helpful. But there are things that I can do and think about that are helpful in that way.
Thank you. And obviously, the costumes do make a difference. You just mentioned that. And Twelfth Night is the debut of costume designer Jenny Manis at APT. What can you tell us about her designs for this show?
Well, sure, we can.
I thought she was asking you.
It's always funny because we really haven't seen them yet. Of course, whoever's listening to this will have seen them more than we have at this point.
Period specific or?
I think we're calling it period specific meets rock and roll. There's a little bit of like David Bowie research with the like very traditional silhouette. So again, it's classic. There's something traditional about it, but it's not reverent, and it's not necessarily having to adhere to anything that we don't want to adhere to anymore.
Have you seen your sketches yet, Gavin?
I've seen, a couple of sketches, and I've had a couple of fittings. Right now, the main obstacle is finding a way to have my prop sword not be dragging on the ground because I'm not tall, but it is a long sword. So right now we're just trying to figure. That's like my major concern. Like, how do I make this sword work with the costume that I'm wearing? And I think they're going to have a conversation between props and costume, so that I don't like a 3-year-old trying to play, Three Musketeers.
And it must be a challenge for a new costumer because the costumes that you wear in and out every day have to withstand a lot of weather and sun and not be miserable for you to wear in the...
And sunscreen and bug spray and sweat and all of the things you can possibly imagine happening to you outside.
And dead mosquitoes.
Yeah. Oh,
yes.
gosh. It's for real.
So is a more realistic costume generally less comfortable? I mean, I shouldn't say realistic, I'm sorry. I mean, a more period-appropriate costume, less comfortable in the outdoors?
I think we're really lucky here. No matter what we have to wear, there are little secrets that we have, and the people in our costume shop are geniuses in making sure that each costume feels as comfortable as possible. It makes me think of the dress that I wore in Flea in Her Ear a couple years ago that was very Victorian, but it had little gussets of Lycra that, I felt like I was just, wearing clothes to the gym in that thing. It certainly didn't look that way. So I think regardless, we're well taken care of.
That's great. So I want to talk about each of your characters a little bit. Gavin, why don't you start by telling us about your character and how he's portrayed in this production?
Well, Orsino is, is a man of power who is used to getting what he wants, and is somewhat befuddled when we start the play because he's in love with a woman who doesn't seem to reciprocate his feelings for her. And he's quite lovesick. And the crazy thing about this character is, Kelsey mentioned earlier about exploring her masculine side. I find that, and I think you had mentioned at one point in the questions that we were sent about him being in his feelings so much. And I do think that he tends to be a bit self-indulgent in his melancholy. But he has this journey of discovery, which is, sometimes the things that we think we want may be staring us right in the face, but we don't necessarily see it, as is the case with Cesario/Viola. She represents, as I come to learn during the course of the play, everything that I've always desired and wanted. But this idea of who this other woman is more representative of what this Duke feels he should have, which is, this woman who's very well-to-do, has a lot of money and land. So it's an amazing journey for me as Gavin, who tends to be a bit naive when it comes to love still at this point in my life. The women in my family keep telling me, when are you going to learn? And I still haven't. So maybe by the time we're done with this run, I may glean a little bit of knowledge or wisdom as to how to do this romance thing.
Oh, you and the audience members. And Kelsey, how about, you've already talked a little bit about the breeches part of your character, but obviously you have two aspects.
At least two, yeah. There's a lot of different layers to Viola. I'm really in that like beautiful part of the process where I'm falling in love with her. I think, and I've spoken about it recently, and I think it holds true. I think this play starts in a horrific tragedy for this character. And what is so beautiful about her is her resilience and the way that she completely gives over to adventure. There's a reckless quality about Viola, which makes me think maybe that's my connection to What You Will, is that she just says yes over and over again. And right now, John, our director, and I are working on how many moments of hope can we find for her in this play? How many moments of how can she find joy in the absurdity and the anxiety of what she experiences? She gets herself into quite a pickle, as they say in this play, and she kind of just says, "Okay, what next?" And I think that's true. I think, in my experience, when you go through defining moments in life, moments of grief and disparity, at some point in the process, there's a quality of, well, whatever happens next happens, and you kind of, you get this courage that comes from deep within, and I think she has that in spades.
And what about music in the play? Can either of you talk about the songs Fesky sings and how that's used?
Well, I don't know what the original melodies may have been, but our sound designer, Josh Schmidt, has created some of the most beautiful melodies and harmonies that I think I've ever heard on the APT stage. And LaShawn Banks, who plays Festy, sings them beautifully. And I'm very blessed to be able to, at one point, get to harmonize a little bit with Kelsey. And it's interesting how the music, for me, actually starts to sew a relationship together that was more confusing before that moment of music for me. So yeah, it's pretty helpful.
So Kelsey, you'll be singing also.
I will, and it's a gorgeous song we get to sing together. It's so great. It makes the rest of the scene just play it. I mean, it's just like, you can't help but be in love with this guy when you just
so
sing
much
with
of the
him
work
that
for
way.
us, yeah.
It's beautiful. So well done, Josh.
Oh,
Amen.
I can't wait. There's going to be so much magic in this play. Thank you both. We're really looking forward to it.
Thanks,
Thank
Orange.
you.
American Players Theater Talkbacks to Go is a co-production of Orange Tree Imports and Audio for the Arts. Please find us on iTunes and YouTube under APT Talkbacks to Go. Our theme song is called Play in the Woods and is written and performed by myself, Ben Ferris, Tyler Willenbrink, Noah Gilfillan, Elliot Gilfillan, Grant Blaschka, and Susan Hofer. With Orange Schroeder, I'm Buzz Kemper. Thank you for listening.